Now that we've learned how to insert the cup and plate into the machine properly, let's take a look at the next component. That's the pad selection. You can see here we have a number of pads, and it all depends on the substrate that you're printing on, the surface texture, and the contour. Today, we're going to be printing on golf balls. Well, golf ball has both convex and concave dimples. So convex shape and concave dimples. Very challenging for most of the processes to print on. As long as we stay within 90 degrees of the circumference, we can print on this comfortably with proper pad selection. This is a production style pad used in golf ball printing, and this would do the image that we're doing today. The image that we're doing is approximately 7/8 of an inch long, so it's a little bit longer than this typical golf ball image, which is about 3/4. I want to use a little bit larger pad today because of the larger image, and we're going to use a pad that's typically used on this machine to do almost a maximum size image. Now the next thing is the hardness. Here we can determine the hardness by the color on the back of the pad. Our system of color coding, the back of the pads allows you to quickly determine which hardness you're dealing with. Typically on a textured surface, you will need a harder, pointier pad. The steeper the texture, the harder and the pointier the pad that you want. This pad, which we'll show you in just a moment, will print this golf ball. At the same time, it would print a deeply grained plastic etched material. A pad that is flatter like this, or worst case, like more of these, will have a lot of problem in textures. And the reason is what we call the contact angle. The steeper the contact angle with your pad, the better it does job of rolling out the air. Don't forget, in pad printing, there's two things that we have to do. That's pick up and release. Well, first we have to pick up all the image, and we need to pick it up without air entrapment in the corners. This will be one of the major problems that you run into when you do pad printing. This can be most quickly eliminated by going to a steep-sided pad. The flatter your pad, the more time it will take for that pad to swell and eventually get the air out of the corners, minimizing the air entrapment. The other type of pad we have are bar pads. If you're printing on a long, narrow surface, such as a square round container, we will use a bar pad. We'll either split the image down the middle or print off to one side. Another thing that you should always remember in pads, you should never use much over 50% of the area, surface area of a pad. If you're printing on a convex surface, you'll need a relatively flat pad because the fixture of the project itself gives you the great contact angle area. Steeper the part, the flatter the pad. If you're printing on a flat surface or a convex surface, you will need extremely steep pad angle to give you that contact angle to give you your best quality printing. So as a general rule, you'll get better quality printing with harder and steeper pads on most surfaces than you will with a flat, softer pad. Now we're going to determine where we're going to put our pad placement, our pad tip placement. We never want to come down into the image with the pad. When we do that, that's the first place that contacts the plate. If that is in an area where the ink is, that area will have pinholes in it. Now, a small tip like this will have a very small amount of pinholes in a small area. If you use a flatter pad like this, or like this one, you will have a large amount of pinholes over a relatively large area. So, always make sure that your pad tip comes down into an area where there's no ink, no image directly on the tip of the pad. Either put it off in the middle between the letters or off to one side. Remembering the 50% rule. Don't make your pad compressed to such an extent that you're trying to fit 3/4 or more of the image on the surface. Stick to 50% of the total surface area, go to larger pads, and your printing will be a lot better and a lot easier.